What is up, friends? My friend and I are talking about ankle rolls. She's a fellow eccentrics instructor, and I was just about to come on here to make a little exchange video with her demo. And I was like, why don't I just make this for everybody, because this is useful information. So lots of us have concerns about ankle rolls. If you've ever injured your ankle, you are, and you know this probably by now, you are susceptible to ankle rolls and weakened ankles that you need to fortify with muscular strength, because you are very likely to re-injure those ankle tissues, the connective tissue of your ankle. I made a whole video about how the proprioceptive sensors in that tissue are damaged, and it's really hard. We need to backfill the strengthening of that connective tissue with muscular strength. My dog is drinking in the background. He likes to do that when I'm making videos. So one of the exercises we do in eccentrics is actually a really cool undercover ankle roll preventative exercise. We think of it as being for balance and for hip strengthening and mobility, but there's a huge ankle strengthening component, not just the muscular strengthening, but the neuro pathway connecting to what is going on in the foot as it negotiates different foot placements that I like to think of as I could prevent an ankle roll at any of the given, 10-minute increments of the clock. If you think about your foot landing in different places, you want to be able to prevent an ankle roll at each one. You want your body to have gone through the motions from the surface of the foot connecting the floor up to your hip, up to where your center of gravity is relocating itself to prevent a fall. Okay? So here's the exercise. If you've been in my class, it's familiar to you. I know I'm headless. I know this background is super glamorous. Work with me. It's a really bright, light day, so this is the best place for me to try to do this, and I hope the sound is coming through clear. So in this exercise, we will have done some balance work, and we'll probably do something that'll start like this. We'll do kicks, and then we'll start to land on that front foot. Right? I always like to say the balance leg is our entree, the moving leg is our side dish, but in this instance, I'm actually going to talk as much about the moving leg. And I say that because my priority for you is that you're working on the balance, right? So here I'm going to work the balance, and I'm going to bring this foot around. Notice this leg stays facing you. This one is moving in the socket to be able to make that circle, right? I'm just emphasizing that it's corkscrewing at the hip. This one is not, so I'm not pivoting on that front foot. You might find your body kind of doing that, but notice if you pivot on this leg, then you're just landing at the same position in every angle, and that's defeating our purpose. Then I can only prevent an ankle injury when I land straight forward, as long as it's to the side. Does that make sense? So for your ankle roll potential, you're going to land and push off. Land and push off. To be the most initial version of this exercise is really foot dominant. I'm isolating what my foot has to do because my foot is the first responder to the sensation of impacting the floor, and if it's like a sport, pushing my body the other way. Hi, Mio. Do you have to be as involved in this video as you are? Okay. All right. So landing, as I walk around, it's key that I get good connection with the floor, each spot. So I want to make sure I'm landing where I get prime muscular stabilization of my foot. I want each of these to be, my foot is landing as optimally in my tripod stance. That's the balls, like really, it's basically, it's another way of saying, use the entire foot. Don't be rolling, don't be rolling, don't be up on the ball, and definitely don't be on the heel, right? So just don't be anywhere distorting that. Try to connect. To get to your tripod, you're going to squeeze your body down with control, just like you would under optimal circumstances if you landed your foot. You wouldn't, right? You wouldn't get over yourself. You definitely wouldn't want to hyperextend a knee or something like that, right? You want to land and absorb. Land, absorb. Foot resists, and everything upstream resists. Okay. So the other thing that's really powerful about this exercise is that as you're going around to the outside edge of your clock, right, you don't have to put the leg that far. You can have the leg closer. But if you say, just for demonstration purposes, the further that leg is out, I want to show you what happens when I land. We've talked about the connecting with the floor part. I'm connecting on the inside of the ball of the foot. Super key. And here's why. If I land anywhere else in the inversion, eversion spectrum of what's going on at my subtalar joint, essentially, so below my ankle, we'll say, because ankle is mostly this movement. Here it's kind of below my ankle stuff. This gets real wobbly, guys. This can be really wobbly. We need our ankle to have access to all this range of motion, but we also have to stabilize it so that we don't have range of motion when we can't control it. So as I land to the side, I'm aiming for that inside of the ball of my foot, not the top of the ball of my foot, not right here to the side, because guess what? If my weight's going that way, I am very susceptible to a roll to the outside. And this is the most common ankle injury, as I've talked about in other videos. And you can find, I mean, this is well documented, that a lateral ankle roll, rolling over that side of our ankle, is the most common way people injure themselves. And then, like I said, we are susceptible in so many instances to that type of collapse, and it'll really haunt you. So prevention is key, and it also, you know what, if you trip, if you go over the ankle, it's hard to recover the rest of your body without more precious things also hitting the ground. So as you go around, you're aiming for that inside edge, or I like to say kind of the inside quadrant, a place where you can get good leverage using the inner and outer thigh muscles to support the calf and shin. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the hip, but just play with it, maybe consider going around with me. Check out these back quadrants, right? How much turnout, how much straight down. Practice adjusting your center of gravity. We've done, like, you have a video about walking backwards, because it's really important to practice gaining, I know I'm dancing it out a little bit here, but just to show you demonstrating the foot control. Active feet. Have active feet for an active body. I'm lowering, I have a lot of weight on that back leg. You can also do this, as I always emphasize in my classes, well, that you can do this with more weight on the front leg and just help that foot go through the range of motion, because maybe you have bunion pain or plantar fasciitis or stiff ankles, and it's just get it warmed up to the idea of going through the range of motion before you put a bunch of weight on it. Okay, so now back to the hip action, because the other thing we're doing usually in this exercise is we're doing leg kicks, and I just want to show you how the hip, and I'm doing this kind of wimpy, I'm going to run into my side of my house here, but you get the idea. I want to talk about how the lateral hip muscles, which are a huge focus of the eccentrics workout, we're always doing side-to-side lunges and things, and I've talked about it to strengthen the lateral, precious lateral infrastructure of our lower body that helps sustain the health of our hips and all of our joints in the normal way we walk, which is kind of this stuff, right? I need the inside-outside stuff to keep me anchored so that I don't get pain in uneven wear and tear in this entire system. Hip pain, back pain, SI pain, knee pain. Oh, I could go on, right? You know I could go on, because I'd start highlighting all of the most common injuries, bunions and collapsed arches and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so when you're doing this kick, I kind of find the best angle. You always say it's at your hip. It's not at your waist. We can do other fun stuff to strengthen our waist. But here, it's at the hip itself. So not hands on your hips, not up on the top of your pelvis, but the actual hip socket where your femur head attaches to your pelvis. You want to get action there, right? And on the side positions, it's very key, like I said earlier, right? The rotation, the angle of the foot and the hip is useful. It's nothing wrong with turning this foot out and doing kicks in this direction. Absolutely not. Nothing wrong with this. Nothing wrong. Kind of leaning back as I did that, but here we go, right? Nothing wrong with that. But for the strengthening purpose here, again, I want the lateral tissue to get the focus. So I want that knee forward, both knees forward, both feet rolling towards the front. Okay, my foot is disappearing out of the camera. So that I'm really isolating the lateral hip tissue right here at this goodness, which when I was trying to show you here on this uneven ground, so I don't know if the depth perceptive is a little strange there, but there's a crease in my shorts there when I do that. Okay, the reason is because when we strengthen those muscles, one of the things we're doing is we're keeping our hips from doing this. So as I'm standing on that balance leg, boom, I'm able to keep that hip under me. Boom. Just like when I walk, I'm able to keep that hip under me. I'm not distending and stretching out that connective tissue. Well, in the sweeping side leg, both these hips are strengthening the same target audience. This one is doing it in a closed position by not letting me counterbalance and lean that way. It's staying under me. And this leg is strengthening in an active, what we would call open chain, because the foot is not contacting the floor. But it's the same muscles doing their action. So you can imagine this one is preventing this from happening. And if I were to just transition it to its other job, preventing this see how the leg is now going this way relative to my pelvis, is the same muscular activation as doing raising the leg away from the pelvis, right? Wrap your brain around that a little bit. Don't overstress it, but I want you to see that, because when we go to the side with the feet, it's not like my foot is the first line of defense, but it's not the only player on this court. There's bigger, stronger players. It's just kind of like, honestly, it's kind of like the one in the rowboat, or in like the rowing, what is it called? What is rowing called again? It's called something. Anyway, fancy rowing. There's someone at the front of the boat who's like calling stuff. He's usually a fairly small person, not the strongest person in the boat, but a very key person calling shots. That's what the foot is doing, right? The nerves in the foot, it's help orchestrating what's going on, and the muscles up here are going to row and really create some power. So this hip is assisting that foot. This inner thigh is keeping that foot down and preventing this from happening. It's working with the muscles of the ankle and calf that prevent that from happening, and the outer hip is staying driven out and not letting this happen in that range of motion. It's the same as if I walk and I just collapse my hips, except it would be what's happening at my hip out there. If I keep going, hip keeps going, ankle was very sad, right? So I just wanted to make that connection. I think it's so valuable to understand how all these different movements are both therapeutic, injury preventative, even if you've been injured, injury rehabilitative, depending on how you do it, mentality and the focus you use when you're doing it, so it creates different intensity in what you're doing. But I also really think the geometry of the body is fascinating, and so if it's something that you're interested in, which I hope it is, whether it's for fall prevention just in life, because when we fall, things get pretty messy pretty quickly, or at least they can. No one wants to come back from crazy injuries over something as stupid and hopefully preventable. It really is something we can work to prevent, and we should all be living our life in a way that helps set us up for fall prevention at every stage of our life. I know people of all ages, literally in all decades, who've had some nasty falls, and from tailbone injuries to ribs being broken to femurs being broken, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. So work on your balance, work on your fall prevention. What else was I going to say about that? Or if you're an athlete who just doesn't want an ankle roll setting you back for your season, or potentially sidelining you indefinitely because you can never get out of the ankle injury liability that will haunt you. Because when you're playing hard, you're not thinking about this stuff. You got to train it so that when you play, it's already in your tissue. Hope this is helpful, guys. Talk soon.